Um, all right, guys. So that's it then. I've talked a little bit about visual analytics just to kind of ease you into the context of the course. But actually, the most important parts is that are going to start now because we need to discuss a whole bunch of stuff about the organization of the course. And so again, welcome to 4DV807. And the focus of this course is on giving you like a practical hands-on approach to visual analytics, right? So you're going to basically develop a project. That's not the only thing that you're going to do, but let's say that the main part of the course is developing a visual analytics project, right? This should be done in groups of 2 to 3 students. So you will, I mean, we still have to make sure and to know exactly how many people will actually be active in the course. But right now we have 7 master students enrolled. So if that is the case, then we will have two teams of 2 and 1 team of 3 students. So that will be 3 teams, and the projects will be developing teams, except for the PhD students, because the PhD students will work individually instead. However, like I said, the development of the project itself is not the only thing that you're going to do. The course is roughly separated into 2 parts. And the first part is the preparation, and the second part is the actual project development. And the reason why we have this preparation with lectures and video tutorials and so on is that we know that most of you, I'm not sure if it's all of you, but most of you are taking the visualization course at the same time. So we need to, so we cannot expect that you have all the pre-requirements or all the basic fundamental things that you need to know in order to start developing the project right away, right? So we planned that the beginning of the course will be like a crash course on some of the stuff that you need to know in order to start the project development. And that includes also basic visualization concepts that will be more or less duplicated from the other course, but compressed, right? So it will be a little bit like a really like a crash course, and then slowly in the other course you're going to learn that slowly and with more details. But we have this crash course in the beginning. There will be tutorials, there will be actual conceptual lectures, practical lectures, all of this in order to make sure that you not only get let's say up to date on the concepts but also on the programming environment that you need and all the frameworks, libraries, and so on. In this first part, you will also need to write a project proposal, right? Because before you start developing the project, you need to have your proposal approved. I'm gonna go through the schedule a little bit in the next few slides, but just know that during these first few weeks, you're going to not only be following lectures and doing things like that, but also writing your project proposal, okay? Then in part 2 comes the actual project development, and in this case, we will have weekly meetings or seminars. There will be tutoring sessions, like open tutoring sessions for you to just come and ask whatever question you need, ask for help in whatever you need, and we will be available to help you. And then finally, near the end, you will have to deliver a couple of reports on your progress. But it's very important to remember these weekly meetings, because we will really meet every week in a semi-agile way in order to keep track of the progress. I guess it's interesting for us to go through the schedule. It's available on my Moodle, and everything's going to be done remotely, okay? Because of the coronavirus, we're not gonna, we just basically went all purely online in order to, also because we have people from PhD students from attending from other places, and just people who are also not necessarily here in Vancouver, and we thought this was going to be the best solution, so we did that. So you know what? I'm actually gonna stop sharing this and gonna open the schedule so we can go over the schedule, even though it's gonna break the flow a little bit. But I think it's important because, you know, schedule is important. So let me share this other screen here. Yeah. Let me see. Can you see
Oh, now it's not. It was, yeah, we saw your screen previously. Now it's just a blank space.
Yeah.
Yes, now it's all right.
Okay. Yeah. So if you guys can also open it on your own computer to see the schedule. But as you can see, this is a very long course. We're going to go all the way to January of next year. It's a 5-credit course, so that means it's like
10 credit.
10 credit. So that means it's 10 credit, but it's 2 periods of 5 credits. So because that's very important for us to remember that at any given point in time, this course is taking up 1/3 of your full, let's say, working schedule. So it's let's say 33% of your time at any given point in time. But since it's 2 periods, then it becomes, of course, 10 credits. But it's important to remember this because that means that you're expected to roughly work like 12, 13 hours per week on this, which would be like 1/3 of 40 hours. And what happens here is that in the first few weeks until week 42, so until the 7th week of the course, we're basically having lectures. So it says here 2 lectures and 1 video tutorial. Usually these 2 lectures mean 1 theoretical lecture and 1 practical lecture. Only this week is going to be different because tomorrow we will also have 1 more conceptual lecture. But usually it's one theoretical lecture, conceptual lecture on Wednesday, and then 1 practical lecture on Thursday. And I will be usually on Wednesdays, and Kostya will usually be on the Thursdays. And a video tutorial, which will be there anyway for you to just watch whenever you want. Yeah. Then, so these are the lectures. We're going to record them, make them available online. And then as you can see here on week 4, we have this dataset presentation. This is, you guys are going to give a presentation on your corresponding data sets that you're going to use for the project. So the PhD students will present the data that they are going to use in their projects, and the master students are going to present the data that they're going to use. But these are a little bit different. And I guess I will touch in that with more details, but the point here is that the PhD students are going to come up with their own data, right? Because we expect that it's much more interesting for them to work on data that is related to their own research. So the PhD students are going to build something using their own data sets from their own research, while the master students will be given specific data sets to work on. Okay, so we have selected some data sets, the pre-existing data sets with lots of extra background information and things that will help you. These are the data sets that the master students we're going to use, but the PhD students want to come up with their own. But in general, everyone will have a data set presentation here on week 39. Okay, so in 3 weeks from now.
May I interrupt you for a second, Rafael?
Yeah.
Just you'll see in this table with this course schedule that typically we have these 2 events every week, Wednesday and Thursday. And when it comes to lectures, of course, it's different lectures on both dates. When it comes to these seminars, there are also going to be mainly 2 sessions per week, Wednesday and Thursday. So overall, as we stated also there in this Moodle page, and there is a lot of information in the Moodle page, The seminars are mandatory in the sense that they're associated with some presentations or some discussions. So it's mandatory for every student, or let's say every team of students, to present their presentation during such weeks with seminars. But it's not mandatory, let's say, for you to attend both days, Wednesday and Thursday. The idea with this is that we are going to try to be pretty flexible. So we can assign, for instance, that one team of students has their little presentation during, let's say, week 4 of the course in this case, on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, if you're busy or whatever, it's not mandatory for you to show up. The same thing with PhD students. We are trying to be flexible that if one of the days, let's say Wednesday or Thursday, works for you better and the other does not work at all, then we can put you on the slot on either Wednesday or Thursday. So just to summarize, when it comes to all of these weeks, when you see these things like the seminar, it's not mandatory for you to participate in both of the dates. It should be one date.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so this data set presentation basically is, I'm going to talk about that in details, just so you know that it's going to happen. Then you have 2 more weeks, and then there's the proposal discussion. So again, at this point, yeah. So at this point, you had to actually deliver the proposal draft October 4th here. So you deliver the proposal draft, then we're going to discuss it on the next Wednesday and Thursday next week. So it's important that you submit it a few days earlier, because then we have some time to read it and give you feedback. Then again, more lectures, more one more video tutorials. And then we have the final project proposal deadline here, which is October 18th. So at this point, you're supposed to deliver the final corrected, so to speak, project proposal with all the stuff that we discussed here and that we suggest here and so on. And then this is your final project proposal. And then on week 43, we have this implementation kickoff in the first week after the final project proposal. We're going to talk about the retakes also, but just so you keep it in mind that if you fail to have this thing here, and if you fail to deliver this 1 week later, or I think it was, in this case, it was 1 week later, then you cannot proceed with the development of the project, because it makes no sense for you to develop a project without an approved proposal. Okay, so this is a very important deadline here. But we're going to talk about the retakes in details. Then we have the implementation kickoff, and then you can see that every other week, so every week we have either a seminar where we will discuss the implementation and so on, or we have optional tutoring sessions, so these optional tutoring sessions are really like very open, where you just come with whatever you need, and then we will try to help as much as we can. But the seminars are actually for progress reports, right? So they're going to be a little bit more structured. Everyone will have a time slot, and everyone will have to be there in order to discuss everything, because this is part of what you're being examined. You're being examined on project management, right? This is a project. This is not just like do your thing and then come back in the end and we'll see. This is a project management. In a way, is a very important part of this course. So you're being examined on that, and that's why it is very, very important for you to be present on the seminars, not on the optional tutoring sessions, of course. And you can also see here that we have the deadlines here, like so for example, you have the implementation kickoff on 21 and 22, and then on November 1st, you have your first release in short progress report. These releases and short progress reports will be done in a system called GitLab, which we'll talk about a little bit further. But basically, you're going to use this system called GitLab in order to develop your project. And in GitLab, you will do the releases and the short progress reports a few days before we have the seminar, right?
If I might, yeah,
Yeah.
just add one tiny thing, just so it, with all these dates, just to make it clear for the for everyone
Yep.
listening.
Please.
Mainly, we've set the deadlines on Sunday evenings. So then the idea is that by the end of the week, let's say you have such a deadline, such a little eventual release on GitLab, and then several days later, we then typically have a seminar, which is more or less kind of such a project meeting where you do your short demos, and in kind of an agile manner, we discuss very quickly with each of the groups what progress have you reached, what were any problems, how do you plan to proceed further in such a very short way. So typically most of these deadlines are on Sunday evenings. And then if you have a deadline, then it means that several days afterwards, on Wednesday and Thursdays, there are these sessions where we meet to discuss. So typically that's the structure, so you have it in your mind.
Yeah. And you can see that we have planned demos. So you have to think about these when you're doing your implementation during these weeks. Something must be shown. So even if it's not working, because it probably won't be in the first few weeks anyway, but you have to somehow show that you've got something going on. You got something. Well, there's no visualizations. Just please.
Just to give an idea with this first thing, we even marked it as the initial demo. We don't expect much at the beginning, but we expect you to demonstrate that you're doing something, that you, let's say, have set up such a repository on GitLab, that you've maybe, by that time, you already should have decided on your development stack, because that will be part of the proposal. So then you demonstrate during these first demos that you have installed everything, and you've maybe pushed the basic files, the basic structure for your project, also to your repositories. And then maybe during the first demo, during this first seminar, you demonstrate just a very, very basic demo, more or less hello world, but in that specific development stack that you've chosen and we've agreed on. And then further and further, we expect you to really build on the features related to all the aspects of your visual analytics project, both like computational and visualization parts.
And that goes on for a while. This loop of releasing meetings, and then at some point at the end, we'll have these evaluation sessions, which are we're going to discuss them in details later, but they're basically that you're going to evaluate each other's work in the way that we in a mini scientific evaluation or mini empirical evaluation, in the way that we usually do in the visualization research, where you're going to have a questionnaire, you're going to go through the system, and you're going to answer some questions about each other's system in order to evaluate the solutions, right? In a way, it's like an example of how such an evaluation works in visualization research. Then we have winter break. Around this time is Christmas.
Before the winter break, so after these evaluation sessions take place, we more or less expect you guys to submit such a, as we state here, evaluation report. Basically, we mean the results of your evaluation, so that you just write down and submit the results of these kind of questionnaires that you get from each other. And then maybe you already add a couple of thoughts about if these evaluation sessions found any huge problems with your projects, and how would you plan to address at least some of these problems, if there are any, or maybe how do you plan to continue improving your implementation a little bit through these final remaining weeks. And then we go to the break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we have the break, and then when you come back, there is final seminar, final project release, and then the reflection reports, which are part of the examination of the system. I'm going to talk about them in details. Yeah. Oh, yes. So I said final seminar here, but it's not the final seminar. It's final seminar in week 2. And that's when you do the final project presentation, the final demo, and then everything is done. So this is just about the schedule, but we still have to go through some many things. But I just wanted to make sure that we go through the schedule, you understand what's going to happen in general, and please ask questions if you want to to ask anything. If you need anything, just either write in the chat or come come on in the audio. Okay.
And Rafael, do you plan to talk about this very first sort of a deadline about the project team selection, or should I just mention it quickly?
You can mention it.
Yeah, so could you scroll up just a little bit?
Oh, okay. So you wanted me to stay there. I was going back to my slides. Okay.
So the idea is the following. Well, it doesn't concern PhD students. As we mentioned, PhD students will work individually, but the master students taking this course, we expect you to work in teams. In some sense, this is a point of this project course, that you work in teams and you use a little bit the knowledge about the teamwork and you improve these skills of teamwork while working on this. So the very first task, in a sense, that you have right now, until the end of the next week, I think, to do that, is that you should organize yourselves into teams. So if I see all of the names on the list right now are familiar to me, and I know that you guys are part of the master programs and you all know each other. And well, there are a couple more students who haven't officially registered themselves in the course. I hope they do, but who knows? But in a sense, we, as Rafael mentioned, we really need you to organize in these teams of 2 or 3 students and do it rather fast, because then afterwards we'll assign the data sets for the teams. So please, Rafael, could you scroll down just a little bit? Just a little bit. Yes. So on my Moodle, you will find this, you see this icon with 2 red and green persons, and it's kind of a survey answering or quiz answering page, which will allow you to sign up for one of the teams. And right now, those teams are just called Team 1, Team 2, Team 3. And there can be at maximum 3 people in each team. So we strongly suggest that you very soon talk to each other and you try to put yourself into those teams there. We might eventually need to sort of step up. If right now we end up with a team consisting of 1 person, then we will probably do some readjustments. But otherwise, we expect you to do this rather soon, because it will affect your kind of team and your further progress. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and yeah, you need to do that because you need to know also in order to assign which data sets you're going to use. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go on and reuse it and stay here anyway, because my slides basically are just copy paste of what I have here. So anyway, course assessment. Let's talk about course assessment. These are the deliverables and mandatory activities that we have in the course. Project proposal that you're going to come up with. I'm going to show you the template, and also the seminar presentations for the project proposal. So seminars are part. The presentations are part of the assessment. The proposal itself and the presentation of the proposal. Then regular project releases to GitLab plus the seminar presentations, including demos. So these are the bi-weekly mandatory meetings that we will have with the demos. And also, of course, the regular, the actual releases that you're doing on GitLab, like they have to be there and they have to show like some consistent progress. There is a report with the evaluation results of your project. So this is, that I think I showed at the end of the schedule where you're going to do this evaluation. Then you have the results of this evaluation. There's a report. So that is also part of the assessment. The final reflection report on human-centered aspects of visual analytics. This is something we're going to talk about a bit later in the course. So you don't have to focus on this right now. Then there's this individual final reflection report, how to manage an agile project. Again, this is like a reflection on everything that happened in the course as a whole. So we're going to talk about this much later. Just know that it is there and you have to deliver it at the end in like 6 months. And then of course there's the final project presentation. These are the main activities or the main deliverables that will be assessed, right? We're going to talk also about the grading criteria. But maybe, I guess this is important for you because it's the late submission policy and retakes. These are, people usually are very interested in knowing what's going to happen if they don't manage to follow exactly the expected deadlines. So basically, this is how it's going to be. In the beginning, in the phase of the project proposal, both the draft and the final version, we will accept late submissions during 1 week after the respective deadline. So you miss the deadline, you have 1 week to catch up, right? There will be a penalty for the grade. So you will, at this stage, you will not be getting an A anymore. You're going to get at most a B in this specific. So it's not like a B at the end of the course, right? It's a B for this specific aspect of the assessment. Because, you know, if you look at the syllabus, then you have a lot of this proof moments where each thing is assessed individually with a grade from A to F. And then, of course, in the end, this whole thing is kind of like average into a final grade. So if, for example, if you miss the proposal draft itself is going to be graded from A to F. So in that specific one, it's not A, you're going for a B in that one. But again, at the end, you can still make up for it. Failed proposals will also be given one more chance for a revision. So not only if you miss the deadline, but if it fails also, if it's not appropriate at all, the proposal really needs to be heavily modified, then you still have 1 week. But failing missing the project proposal after this point means that there's no point in continuing to do this. So after this 1 extra week that you get in order to fix your proposal and deliver it again, if you fail to either deliver it or correct it in the way that it's supposed to be corrected, because we will discuss that, then you cannot continue, because there is no point for you to continue, because we have to also push on with the other students, so we cannot just keep coming back to the proposal over and over again. Okay, so basically that's it. You have 1 week after the final deadline in order to make sure you deliver it, and it's according to the feedback and everything, and then after that, that's it. After the proposal phase, the milestones, which are like the GitLab releases and the seminar demos, same idea. The late submissions will be accepted 1 week after the respective deadline. Again, there will be a small penalty for that specific respective grade, for that specific milestone that you missed, not for the entire project or anything like that, because then you can catch up later. But again, if you, after this 1 week thing, if you don't deliver this milestone, or if you didn't manage to correct it or anything, then you failed that milestone. Okay, and then you just leave it alone and go to the next one. Missed or failed deliverables during the final phase of the course. So okay, and then you get to the final project release, or you get to the final deadlines, and then you have the evaluation reports, you have the final release of your project, you have to do your presentation. So these final things that are coming after the project is theoretically already developed, or at least after these stages where we are having regular meetings, there is this final deadline of February 28th. So that's like 1 month after, or I think even more than 1 month after the, I'm not sure right now, after the final deadline. Then you can deliver everything at this point, right? So all the final submissions and all the activities. I believe that we will also have, actually I think we need to talk about this later, but probably we will also have the actual presentation in this date if you didn't do the presentation. If you need to do a retake of the presentation, let's say, that will be tentatively in this date here, because it's so far away in the future that it's kind of hard to. Maybe who knows? It might change a little bit, but we'll let you know. But it's we're going to be trying to have everything fixed on this date here. So then after this date, that's it. It's over. There's nothing else in the course, right? So this is the late failed submission policy and retakes. Please let me know if you have questions. write them in the chat or speak, because this is something that's very, very important to be clear in the beginning. So I hope it's clear, and if it's not, please let us know.
And
Then
when silent, I would just like to mention that, just add some words of encouragement to everyone taking this course, that it seems like a lot, and you see all these weeks, all these lectures, all these different topics, all these different things that are expected from you as a student as well. I should also mention as well, we are doing this course now the first time. We're also doing some things as we go, but we hope that the overall experience will be interesting. It will be challenging, that's for sure, but we also hope that this overall experience will be interesting and rewarding for all of you, the students and PhD students taking this course. And the main expectation, in the end, it's still a kind of a project course. So even if we mention these things related to the proposal and the reports and things like that, it's important that you follow the requirements that we set up. But it's also important that you understand that in some sense, we really expect you to put your best work during the time when you're working on the project. So the proposal will be very important that you prepare it and then you present it. But in the end, we will be interested to following your progress through the whole phase, this active, especially this active phase, while you're working on your project implementation. So just try to kind of stay on a certain tempo as we get to that stage. And I think then you'll be doing just fine. Especially from master students, we don't really expect anything, commercial product-like by the end when you finish. We will be, and this is why we wanted at the beginning to have these proposals and these discussions, so that we define a certain scope that's realistic for you as well, so that it's, well, not just trivial in terms of launching the examples from tutorials on some websites or some libraries, but on the other hand, that it's also not like a commercial product-like scope. We will try to keep this under sort of the radar to keep it realistic, but that's why we have these meetings and these discussions in the beginning. So don't be afraid, and if we find out as we go that things seem very dire, then we will try, I guess, to also be agile ourselves, right, Rafael? So we will try to adjust to such changing circumstances. And of course, right now with this crazy year, things happen. But the preliminary, the plan, our expectations, that's on the schedule.
Yeah, so we have 20 minutes and then I will have to leave. So I will try to be a little bit more efficient from now on. We have to talk about, in general, some things about the project, the grading criteria, and the proposal here, and also the data sets. But maybe the data sets, I'm not sure. Let's see. So let's begin by talking about general requirements for the project. You have this document here on Moodle, where we are defining more or less what's generally expected from the project, right? These are not specific, let's say, grading assessment criteria that we're going to use, although they kind of are, but it's just that it's more like what you should make sure that these things are present there in one way or another, right? So the course is centered around the design and development of visual analytics project and must combine computation and visual aspects, right? So it is not sufficient to implement just the data processing or just a machine learning pipeline, with only textual or static outputs, okay? So, and on the other hand, it's also not sufficient to just implement a visualization component, which is like, for example, using D3 on a browser or something like this. It has to be both. So it has to be some visualization components that are showing the data or the results of your data processing somehow, and also some machine learning components, and they must work together, right? So let's say, for example, that you're using like the system to train a classifier on your data for some reason or another. Then you have this classifier on the back end that is processing your data. Then you have this front end that is showing the results of this classifier. But then there should be some kind of a control or some kind of interaction in the front end that lets you somehow change the parameters of the classifier. Then the classifier runs again, and the results go back to the front end, and then you see the new results, and then you do this over and over again, something like that. So these two parts are important, okay, guys? So it's really like, it's a combination of machine learning with visualization. And although visual analytics not always has to use machine learning, in this course it has to, because the pre-requirement of the course is machine learning. So you've taken machine learning, and so we're going to use that, right? We're going to combine these two things. The project should be designed with specific data set format and semantics in mind, must help the users to increase their knowledge about the data by facilitating exploratory and or confirmatory analysis according to the state that users does. So the goal of the project is not to develop like a general purpose visualization tool, right? It's not some tool that could be used with any data set. That's all we're looking for here. It's not like, okay, I came up with this tool that you can just feed it whatever data set you want in a specific format, and it will work. No, this is supposed to be a visual analytics system that will analyze your data, right? Now, on the other hand, it can also, your data will not be hard coded also. Like, for example, actually, one thing that we're going to do when we evaluate your final solution is that we're going to take your data and we're going to change it a little bit. We're going to shuffle it around a little bit, and we're going to add some random, let's say, errors to it slightly, just to kind of generate a slightly different data set, and it must work anyway. So the idea here is that conceptually, you're building a system that is analyzing your data set, right? But the data set itself cannot be hard coded, so to speak.
Yeah, so if you see right now the screen, that's the point number 3, exactly. That you can have the expectations about, let's say, the schema. So which data types you have, what structure they have, and the kind of a scale in the sense that you know whether you're loading 100 or 1,000 items or whether you're expecting to load several million. Well, and we will not expect you to support several million, I guess, anyway. But the idea is that you don't go for this hard coding route so much, that you treat your project still a little bit more like a tool where you can still allow, let's say, the user to load a CSV file number 1 or select another CSV file with the same format and still process it and output the results and allow interactive analysis as well. So not too much hard coding in that sense.
So the idea is that conceptually you're analyzing your data set. So for example, if your data set is about you know, social media discussion about coronavirus, then it's social media discussion about coronavirus, and then you have your data set, and it's not supposed to be like a tool that analyzes social media in general, so to speak. Oh, any kind of document from social media that you give me, I will be able to give you a solution. No, it's specifically about coronavirus discussion in Twitter in a certain period for Sweden or something like this. So you have this context, and you stick to it, but the data itself should not be hard coded. So if like we put here, if we extend the data with 10% of additional data entries, for example, in the same format, that should still work, okay? Or if the values of the data change a little bit, but the structure and the schema and everything remains the same, then it should still work, right? With regard to computational component, the implementation is expected to include data pre-processing module and a module for non-trivial computational processing. Some kind of machine learning like regression or clustering or dimensional reduction, something like this. At least one of these should be part of your system. So basically, it has to include at least one component that does some kind of non-trivial machine learning. Okay. And again, this is just basically a reinforcement reinforcing the idea that it's not just visualization, and it's certainly not just machine learning. It has to be a little bit of both. It doesn't have to be anything out of this world. I mean, if you have like this one algorithm that you're interacting with through the visualization, that's enough. But as long as it is there somewhere, okay? With regard to the visualization component, the implementation is typically expected to include several, at least 2 coordinated views and support standard interactions discussed in this course, right? So again, this is something that we're going to build. I mean, we have a few weeks now in order to study visualization and think about visualization and visual analytics, and we will keep on improving on top of these ideas. But just so you understand that you will have to have coordinated views in terms that, in a way that if something changes in one view, or if the model changes, then both views are updated and one view kind of interferes with the other one in an interactive way. We're going to work to get towards that as the course goes on, and you're going to understand what this means if you don't right now. Right? So the user interface should support interactions with the underlying computational component, at least at the level of relaunching the computations, retrieving the results, storing the updated or auxiliary data, so on. So at least you have to be able to rerun the machine learning, retrieve the results, and store this updated date, like user notes or annotations, something like this. That depends on what you're going to do, right? So this interaction between the front end and the back end, so to speak, must exist. Yeah, then it's going to be evaluated because we discussed that already. And the concrete scope of the project, including the functional and non-functional requirements, as well as the preliminary evaluation, shall be discussed in the project proposal that must get approved by the teachers coordinating the course. So there must be a proposal, or else there is no project. All right. And then, of course, the project will be evaluated against the proposal as we go. All right. So these are general requirements. These are like, again, they are part of the assessment. So you must keep it in mind. And at any point in time, if you have questions, or if you think you cannot reach one of these for one reason or another, you have to bring it up to us during the seminars, because then we need to course correct for that.
Yeah. And one note to make is that this description of the project is, in a sense, to give you guys an idea of what we expect by the end of the project. But the more specific details, it will be in your proposal that you will be working on during the, I don't know what, months and a half, basically. There are also some other pages on Moodle. I don't think Raphael has time for that, but we have put some of these descriptions about what's expected in the early draft of your project, and it very much so will have to be related to the data set that you're working with.
Which one you mean?
Requirements, if they're not there, we will anyway let you know, because we will be looking at your draft of your proposal.
Yeah. Which page do you mean?
Hmm?
Which page do you mean?
I think we have one more page where you put like a preliminary template for this project.
Yeah. No, I'll go over that quickly. Yeah.
Okay.
I will find out. I will skip these grading criteria for now, but I will come back to this. But I will now go for the project proposal. Yeah. So project proposal. This is the template, so to speak, of your project proposal, where what is expected to be there in one way or another, right? So first, you're going to start with the introduction, which is a general overview of the data and the problem at hand. Again, guys, I just want to make sure you understand one thing about this. It should be short and objective and concrete. I don't want you guys to go, on like writing pages and pages of this. That's not what we want. We want you to be objective. This is the data that I have. This is related to this problem where this and that happens, and the data was extracted from this problem. And, this is where the data comes from. And in terms of real world entities or events, it represents this or that. Like it's a measurement of something, blah, 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 that exists in the world.
So to reiterate what I also said previously, sorry for interrupting you, but just so you get an idea, there are several of these activities where we mentioned some proposals and reports, but overall in this project, it's more about your teamwork and your project work and a bit of implementation explanation and analysis of the data, not about writing papers or reports.
Yeah.
So yeah, more focus, much more focus will be really on you doing your project work rather than on writing papers
Yeah.
or reports.
Yeah, exactly. So feel free to be super concrete, super objective, and super concise in these things. Don't worry. It's much better if you write something small that just goes straight to the point than going off on a tangent or something like this. Again, motivation. Why is it interesting to explore this data set? What problem does it represent? Why is it interesting to try and solve this problem? These things are more important for the PhD students. For the master students, these things are going to come more or less directly from the data set that we're going to actually give you guys. So that will be a little bit easier to because this kind of comes with the data set. But still, you're going to have this and you're going to present this also to everyone else. So it's important that this is there in the proposal. And how would your solution be applied to other similar interesting problems and challenges? So this part for me is very important because I want you guys to reflect, at least in one paragraph, how you could reuse a little bit of the solution that you have for this specific data set, but in general to other similar problems. But again, all these is like sentences, a couple of paragraphs. Okay. Then you have a data report. This data report is related to that data presentation that I showed in the schedule, right? So you're gonna give a description of the data from an objective point of view. So it should include at least how many data points are there, how many dimensions or features, what are the types of the dimensions and features that you have, how does the distribution of these dimensions look? So some histogram or graph of the dimensions so that we can have, you know, this overview of what's going on. If there are time and or spatial characteristics, then we also need to know about that in this data report. Is the data cleaned up? Did you clean up the data? If so, how did you do it? If not, then why not? This is more related to that data set presentation, but it's also going to be part of your proposal as you deliver it, right? Then you have these research questions or goals. So it's a concrete expression of the problem that is going to be solved. So if you have specific questions you want to answer from the data, you should shape them as research questions. Like, what is the difference between this and that, or how many of these or that exist, something like that. Then these are research questions. But if, on the other hand, you have less specific exploratory goals then that you would like to reach, then you shape them as goals. So my goal is to explore this data set in order to find interesting patterns related to this or that. Then in that case, you can shape them as a goal instead of a question, because then you're not asking a specific question of your data set. Depends on each of you. Then solution design, this is basically like, what are you going to do to solve this, to answer your question or to reach your goal? So three main things must be addressed. What visualization methods you will use. I will use a scatter plot together with a bar chart, and then I will interact this by selecting, if I select something in the scatter plot, then the bar chart is going to update like this or that. And then this is going to trigger a new calculation of regression in the backend and so on. Something like this. What visualization methods you're going to use and what interaction will be present. Very concretely, this visualization with that visualization, then I will interact with this and that. With which machine learning methods or other advanced computational methods will be used. So I'm going to use a regression because I'm dealing with this data and my goal is to do this, so I need to do a regression, or I'm going to use dimensionality reduction because I need to show a simplified version of the data for this reason or that, or I need clusters, so I'm going to use a clustering method, something like this. And what are the implementation details? So implementation details are, okay, I'm going to use D3, or I'm going to use Python with this or that. And then you give us a rough draft of your software architecture and the libraries that you're going to use. So this is the backend, this is the front end. In the backend, I'm using Python with this and that. And in the front end, I'm using D3 with JavaScript, and the communication happens like this or that. Very rough sketch You know, also, yeah, I also put sketches here. So some very rough sketch of the components that are in the front end and in the back end. How's the data flowing through this component? So which component leads to which other component that goes back and forth, or it goes only one way from one component to the other? And what happens when the user interacts? So if the user interacts with the front end, then it triggers something in the back end, then it goes back up or something like this. No protocol here, okay? No specific format. Just draw whatever you want. If you want to draw it in the computer, draw in the computer. If you want to draw it on a whiteboard, then take a picture, no problem. No specific format is required here. We just want to make sure that you guys have a concrete grasp on what you're going to do in general, okay? Yeah, and this, a rough like preliminary planning of assignment of responsibilities between team members. So separate members will like, one will work in the back end and the other in the front end. So in this sense, it doesn't matter to us. It's not like one of these courses where okay, everyone must work in both front end and back end, for example, because that's part of the examination or anything like that. In this case, we don't really care. So you can have separate members working on different parts, for example, and it depends on how you want to do it. Okay, as long as you make sure that the project progresses and that it happens, so you're free to create whatever you want. So then you have the evaluation plan and subsequent potential improvements. This is also not expecting the first draft. We're gonna be discussing more about the evaluation and everything, because this is not a very simple thing. And so at first you don't have to worry about this, at least until we have a couple of lectures and a couple of discussions about this, because this is not really that simple. But it will be in the final draft, but not in the first one. So yeah, basically you have to follow this. This is what you have to write in your project proposal. And again, short sentences, short paragraphs, objective, concrete. Just show us that you have a grasp on what needs to be done. The shorter it is, the more objective it is, the better for us. Okay. And now I'm running out of time, and I have very little time, so I will do it like this, Kosha, if you don't mind. I will go over this thing, and then I will leave, and maybe you can stay on and answer questions if they have any. The only final thing that will be left after this will be the data sets, but there is no time for data sets today. So since we don't have the teams yet, if you want to talk about data sets, you can, but since we don't have the teams yet, I suggest that we talk about the data sets later.
Yeah. I also wasn't really planning. As I said, guys, especially, so the master students, please go to that page where you organize yourselves into teams, and try to put yourselves in teams of, what we expect is that we have teams of 2 to 3 people. If we end up, if the other two guys, if we end up, let's say, with 5 master students, 5 or 6 master students, we will assign you into, I think, well, we will see. It will be either 2 or 3 group of people, but 2 to 3 people. We will not. We will make sure that there is not a situation that the master student is left on their own in a team of 1 person. We will for sure try to assign people in such a way, in such groups. So please try to click on those buttons as soon as possible. PhD students, and then we will also assign one of the data sets of these 3 predetermined data sets to each of the master students groups or teams. PhD students, you'll need to bring your own data. So we suggest, as Rafael mentioned, that you find something that you're interested in that maybe you can reuse in your own research. If you cannot, then just find a data set that is suitable. And then you can use, let's say, these data sets that we were going to use for master students as a rough idea of what we expect. Yeah.
Yeah, but we will get back to that. Maybe I can take 15 minutes tomorrow also, before or after my lecture, and then talk a little bit about that also. But this part of the grading criteria is important, so I will try to go over this, and then I'll leave, and then you can ask your questions if you can stay a little bit more. So grading criteria, guys, this is very complicated. It's a project course, so there are many different aspects of your work that are being evaluated at the same time. So it's very hard to say exactly what is an A, what is a B, and what is a C, right? Because it depends on a complex combination of things. Maybe one person gets a B because they missed some deadlines, and the other person gets a B or a C, not because they missed the deadlines, but because the work was not appropriate for different reasons, right? So it's very hard to explain exactly what's a B, a C, and an A, but we have tried to kind of give you an idea of what's expected and what will happen if some of these things are not met, right? According to the specific proof moments that are on the syllabus. So for example, the first one is vision and planning documents. This is about the proposal. This is about the stuff that you're going to do before the project, right? So it's important that it has a clear background. For example, this is one point. The students must show that they have a good understanding of the data and the possibilities that it offers. So even before it begins, it's important that you take a while to understand the data and everything that comes from it, right? It's important that you have clear goals. So it's important that the students must show that they have a concrete and objective idea of what they want to achieve. So again, when you write the goals of your research, you have to be very clear. I want to do this and I want to do that. It's not about saving the world. It's not about, fixing the conflicts in the Gaza Strip or anything like that. It's about doing one specific thing. I want to do this and that, and I know exactly what I need to do. So
Rafael, as you will probably run out of time, could you please just maybe name these other things with the credit points, like project work including deliverables? Just go over these maybe without going into details.
Yeah. No, I still have 10 minutes, so I will do that. So these are the points. I will try to be very, very quick. These are the points. You can read them also later to know more details. And then when it comes to the grades, for example, what will be a grade A for a vision planning? Well, all the points were described in a clear and satisfactory way, right? Then when it comes to grade B, well, for example, the proposal was not delivered on time, so you cannot have an A anymore. Or one of the points is not clear. So if you have delivered it on time, but one of these points are not clear, even after we discuss and give you feedback, then you cannot get an A, because for an A, all the points must be clear in a satisfactory way, right? Then for a C, more than one of the points are not clear. So some of the points are not clear. For a D, more than some of the points are not clear. So most of the points are unclear. And in this case, you get a D, right? So you see how it's complicated to know exactly what is what, but at least you have the points, and you know that if you don't have all of them clearly done in your proposal, then you're not going to get an A. And if you have more than a few of them not clear, then you're probably going to get a C or a D, right? And for an E, it's only if nothing was clear in your proposal, right? Then you have the second proof moment, which is the project work. Then again, you have some points here, like you have to deliver them on time. There must be clear progress. The implementation must follow the plan as much as possible. You should maintain regular communication with us, the instructors. And the final product must be like an interactive vision analytics system, right? But again, deviations from the initial plan will happen, but they must be dealt with, right? And then again, there are some examples here of what is like grade A or grade B. This is very complicated. We tried to put here some examples. So maybe you can go over them later and question us if there is anything that you need to know. But again, if one deliverable was not submitted on time, or if one of the releases during 1 week, there was little to no progress during that week, or if a few small changes from the initial plan were done without a clear reason. So if you do some change, then you need to have a clear reason for that. But if you just change something without any reason, then that's a deviation from the expectations. And so slowly you get a smaller and smaller grade from B to C and D. But it's also important to remember always, always to keep in mind that this is inherently subjective. So this is not something that you can just objectively put a point on it, and that each case will be assessed and discussed individually. So you will always have chances to discuss this with us before it's actually, you know, submitted or registered. So if you don't agree, then we will meet, we will sit down together, we will go over all of these criteria, and then we will explain to you, look, you got a C because of this and that, this is not good, this was not good, and this was not good. We tried to fix this during the process, it wasn't possible, and so on and so forth. So you will also always have the opportunity to discuss it with us, okay? Reflection reports, again, there are some grading criteria here, like the structure, the content must be original, must be based on your experiences. It must be an objective report. It must not be extra long, longer than necessary. We expect that correct and formal language will be used. This is part of the pre-requirements of the course. Must be submitted on time. Again, same thing here. These are the points that you need to fulfill. And then depending on the combinations of how you fulfill some or all of them or none of them, that is what will actually end up being considered for your grades. So take a look at this in details later. If you have any questions, you can let me know. And then there is this final point here, which is 1 credit, which is this an individual assessment of how each student has handled the course in general, right? As opposed to the other criteria, which are mostly team-based. So mostly all of these, I think with the exception of one of the reports, is all team-based. So these are all team-based criteria. And then you have this final point where you will be assessed individually. And again, you will be notified of your grade. You will have time to discuss this in case you don't agree. And then we will go over this and make sure that everyone is okay with what happened, right? So you guys can go over this page, read it in details, see if you agree. If you don't agree, let us know. And please always keep it in mind that this is inherently subjective. It's not something that we can really just make it using it like some kind of a math formula, because there's just too many things happening at the same time that must be evaluated together, right? This must be put like in a package. And that's not super easy. But anyway, the criteria is here, and it's open and transparent, so you can always check it and let us know what you think. Other than that, I think we've covered everything. Of course, with the exception of the data sets. So, Kostya, I will have to go now. Guys, I just want to thank you very much for coming, for being here in the introduction. It's great to see you all. It's great to have you in the course. It's great that you have enrolled, and I hope you are really staying with us until the end. Always feel free to contact us through Moodle. Please post messages on Moodle whenever you have any kind of insight or comment or question or feedback or really whatever. Moodle forums are, in my opinion, a good asynchronous communication channel. Everyone has access to everything that is posted there, so it's not like you send me an email and then I have to forward that email to all the other people and so on. So everyone is in there, everyone gets notified, everyone sees the discussion, and it's a good asynchronous communication channel. So use it. Questions, suggestions, everything. Go to Moodle, post it on the forums, and we will answer them as fast as we can, because that is the official communication channel. Okay, The official communication channel is Moodle forums. That's where you can expect things to be answered. If you send us an email, if you send us a Slack message, if you post something on the Slack channel, these are unofficial communication channels. You may or may not get an answer anywhere between today and 10 years from now. So you should use Moodle forums, period. Okay? Post on Moodle forums, you will get an answer soon. Use any other form of communication, who knows? All right? And with this, I will say goodbye. Thank you very much again. I hope to see you all soon, tomorrow actually, because we have the first InfoVis lecture tomorrow. And that's it. Now I really have to go.